This is a special Saturday edition of Daily Dose of Septuagint, and we're continuing our study of the very famous and important Codex Vaticanus. Codex Vaticanus is not only significant for the study of the Greek New Testament, where you may have heard of it before, but as a pandect Bible, it is also extremely important for the reconstruction and the study of the Greek Old Testament as well. We'll be looking at my own facsimile copy of it as you see it on the screen, but if you want to look at high-res images, there is the URL below. And today we're going to not only read a verse from it just to continue getting some reps in reading this kind of script, but also taking a look at some paratextual features, that is, scribal things that are typically in the margins that are alongside of the text that help the reader. Let's take a look at the folio where Isaiah 7 shows up. You can see here that there's a VII at the top. This was added later. But what's interesting is if we zoom in, the original scribe actually did some chapter numberings himself. In fact, you see this delta here over in the left margin with a bar over the top. In the ancient world, in Greek as well as in Hebrew and lots of other languages, they typically use letters as numbers. So alpha with a line over it was 1, beta is 2, line over it, gamma is 3. We'll see that in a second. Delta is 4, in this case it's a capital letter, and so on. So this delta over here tells us that from the perspective of the Vaticanus scribe, this is the fourth chapter or division of Isaiah. Of course, we call it chapter 7. Vaticanus has its own sort of divisions, and this is not that unusual. So obviously the chapter sections are a bit bigger in Vaticanus. Well, there's a lot of other stuff actually going on that's worth observation in terms of these aids to readers. So let's take a look at some other things going on with the start of at least what Vaticanus calls chapter 4, we call chapter 7. In the prior line, the last line of the prior chapter, you see a raised dot. Sometimes it's called a colon or a high stop, as different nomenclature. And that's not simply just like a period that ends a sentence. This is also marking the end of an entire unit. And the scribe leaves the rest of it blank. Typically, the scribe is going to try to fill up the line, but because it's the end of one chapter, in this case, he does not. He leaves it blank. The appearance of letters here is actually just from the undertext. So that's another thing. Now, when he starts the new chapter, you'll see it begins with Chi, and you'll notice that Vaticanus typically is going to try to line everything up flush left. And so that kappa extends into the margin to the left. This is a feature known as ekthesis. Ekthesis is really an outdenting. We typically use indentation. This is an outdentation. It enables the reader's eye to track where a new unit begins. And on top of that, the scribe has also put a bar, an overline over the chi, or at least over the first letter. This is called a paragraphos marking, which again is another way of indicating we've started a new unit of text. And so what's really quite cool here is that the scribe has said, hey, this is a new unit, and I'm going to end it here, leave a blank space, kind of do a carriage return in modern parlance, give you a number, outdent it, and put a paragraphos marking there. All of those telling the reader, here is a new chapter. But the scribe doesn't do that all the time. The Vaticanus scribe is a little bit inconsistent in how things are done. So if we look elsewhere, if we go to the next one of these in the next column, this is yet another big break in the discourse. It's not the start of a new chapter, but it is kind of where we'd start a new paragraph. And what has he done here? In this case, it's a double colon, a dicolon, or a two dot here with a little bit of a space. It's not a carriage return. He decided, well, it's not a big stop. It's not a big transition. It's kind of a middle one, and so I'm going to continue going on the same line. So this is the start of a new verse, tade, lege, kurios. We'll come back to that nomen sacrum on the next, or later on. But so he begins the next sentence. Now, on the next line of that sentence, keep in mind, the sentence has already started, then he does use yet another paragraphos marking, but no ekthesis. So that's another combination, another option here. So he doesn't use ekthesis, doesn't put a new number there, but he is at least trying to signal to you visually that a new unit has started. And the fascinating thing about this is he says, all right, here's the start, but really, and this is Sabaoth, by the way, but really the sentence began on the prior line. And so the paragraphos is kind of saying, hey, look, up here we started a new chunk of text, if you will. And so he took the next available moment. It just happened to be the word Sabaoth that he wanted to mark with the paragraphos. Something similar happens farther down the page where another paragraph begins. So you see a paragraphos marking here. Once again, here's a chi, but no ekthesis. Notice it's flush left here. And you also don't have a big break, a big blank space, because he was able to fill up the prior line with all the text to get to the end of the sentence, although you do see not a dicolon, but you do see a raised dot. So this gives you a feel for the different options on the table for how you might visually signal to a reader that you started a new paragraph or a new major discourse chunk, if you will, as opposed to just sort of simple punctuation within a sentence, which we've seen elsewhere. Well, with that in mind, let's go back one folio to chapter 6. And just going to read a little bit from it. But before we do so, if we zoom in, you'll notice here is yet another paragraph number. This one happens to be the gamma. Gamma here, this is uppercase with a line over it. That's chapter 3 from their perspective. It's 6, of course, from our perspective. Since we're starting at the top of a new column, we do see ekthesis here, but we don't see the paragraphos marking. Again, we've now seen all the different combinations. For whatever reason, the scribe didn't feel the need to put a paragraphos. You typically wouldn't at the top of a column. He probably didn't even need the ekthesis here, jutting it out into the left margin, but he did. So let's read. So kai, as you might expect, notice it does have an accent just in the wrong place. Kai agenita. This smooth breathing helps us figure out where the word break is. So kai agenita, or in Hebrew, vayehi. This is starting a new scene, if you will. And it happened. Agenita there being the third singular, aorist middle from ginomai. And it happened, or it came to pass. Then we have to, a genitive article. Any altu, any altas means year. So it happened of the year. So to help you out a bit, let's throw some of the transcription on the screen. Kai agenita tu inial. Notice he doesn't finish that word at the far right because he's trying to maintain flushness, if you will. So he finishes it on the next line. Kai agenita tu inial tu, and it began, and it happened in the year. Then you have a relative pronoun with a rough breathing, as well as a circumflex, actually. So this is the genitive singular of who, the relative pronoun, or it'd be in which, the year in which. And then we have apathanin, the third singular aorist of apothnesko, a spelling change. And then the start of the name of the person. Again, he can't finish it. It's Ozi. It's going to be Uzziah. But if you just pause, you'll notice that very faintly there is an epsilon here. And we've seen this previously in Vaticanus. Morphologically speaking, the original scribe spelled it with an EI as opposed to just an I. And when it was re-inked some decades or centuries later, the person who re-inked it decided, I don't want to keep that E. I'm just not going to re-ink it. You can still see it in that lighter color, but he decided that he didn't want to have that spelling. And then the name continues on the next line. So it's Uzzias. And who is he? He is Ha. There's your article with the rough breathing. Basileus, the king. So in the year in which King Uzziah died. Then we have Adon from Horao. Notice the scribe actually really tried to do his job here. He did give us a smooth breathing and a circumflex. He just didn't put them together like we see in modern typesetting. So I saw, first singular aorist, ton. Now you may be wondering, where's the new here? I would expect this. We've talked about this before. This overbar here is called a new bar. And certain scribes will often do that if they're at the end of the line and they don't really want to squeeze in a tiny little baby in. A lot of times they'll just put that new bar there to signal an N. But it is there. It's ton. And then next line, K, kappa nu, KN. This is actually Kurion, which is Lord, but that is in the form of a nomen sacrum, taking the first letter, second letter, KN, putting the overbar on it. We've seen that before. And I saw the Lord, and then kathamenon, telling us more about this Lord, with the participle there, sitting, epi, upon, and then we have thra, and then it continues on the next line, new. This would be epi plus the genitive. Upon a throne, thranu. And then what's happening with that throne? Let me erase some things. Hupselu, which is from hupselas. And this is just the genitive matching thranu. An uplifted or a high throne. So there's the full transcription. So it happened in the year in which Uzziah the king died. I saw the Lord sitting upon an uplifted or a high or exalted throne. So good to get some practice taking a look at the uncial or majuscule scripts. Hopefully learn some things about paratext as well. So this has been Isaiah 6 and 7. We'll see you next time.